Hello. In this screencast, I'm going to show you how to create a new calendar using your Google Calendar to record entries and then export the data to ICS format so that we can import it into R. So, the first thing you're going to do is create a new calendar. The way you're going to do that is click on the gear, Settings, Add Calendar, Create New Calendar. What you're going to do is you're going to create a calendar called 192. However, I've already created one such calendar, so I will skip this step in this demo. You see here that I already have a 192 calendar. Let's click on the box to show it. What we have here are dummy entries that I've put in, and what I mean by dummy is that this is not my actual sleep schedule for that week, but just synthetic data that I've created for the purpose of this screencast. We have various entries like study, exercise, study, and sleep. Yes, ever important sleep. So what you'll do is you'll add entries. So for example, study. Great, I studied from 2 to 3 p.m. on September the 5th. Let's now export this calendar to ICS format. ICS format is a standardized file format that a lot of calendar apps use. The way we're going to export this is click the gear, Settings, Import Export, and click on Export. Okay, we see that a file has been downloaded. For Mac users, this almost always corresponds to the Downloads folder. Let's double-click that zip file or archive file to unzip and see the contents. Okay, we see that a folder called akim04@smith.edu.ical has been created, and we have 4 ICS files corresponding to our 4 calendars. We're going to import this one, the one called 192, because that corresponds to the data for this exercise. Let's now go to RStudio and import this calendar into R. The first thing you need to do is you need to locate this ICS calendar file on your computer and write down its file path in the quotation marks. So this may take a little bit of practice if you're new to file formats, but in this particular case, it is in the Downloads folder. If you press Tab, it will often auto-complete the options in terms of folders and files. So let's press Enter. Tab, it's in that folder. Tab, 192 Smith. Let's click on that. Now we haven't covered data wrangling yet, so don't worry too much about what all this code is doing, but I'll give a quick summary. The first thing we need to do is ensure that these packages are installed and loaded. The dplyr package is for data wrangling, which we'll cover later. The lubridate package is for working with dates, and the ical package allows you to import ICS files onto your computer. These lines of code right here allow you to import the data into R and convert them to a Tibble data frame. These lines of code do a little bit of wrangling with dates. Now, working with dates and times can be a little bit complicated, so don't worry too much what's going on right here. We'll be sure to cover this later in the semester. We do a little more data wrangling right here, and then we do a further set of data wrangling in order to compute the number of hours and minutes for each task. So let's click on the play button to run this code. The result is a data frame with a variable called date that has date and time, a summary of what you did based on the calendar entry that you made, the number of minutes, and the number of hours. Now I'm going to show you how to export this data if you are a user of Calendar on Mac OS. If you're an Outlook user on Windows, it should be very similar. Let's go to Calendar. I've preloaded the 192 calendar in the Calendar app. Let's export this calendar. First, we need to click on the 192 calendar, File, Export, Export. Let's save it in the Downloads folder. Export. Great. Let's now go to our Finder window and take a look at that file. We now have in our Downloads folder a file called 192 ICS. Let's repeat this demonstration using this particular ICS file. So in this case, the file is not in this folder, but rather is in the Downloads folder. Let's press Tab, 192 ICS, and press play. What you're going to do for this mini project is you're going to create data visualizations using this particular variable, the date, the type of task, and the time spent. Furthermore, you're going to write a reflection piece because, again, you're sharing data about yourself. So it is important to think anytime you share data, or in particular, anytime you work with somebody else's data, what kind of ethical thinking you must have.